Hey, how's it going, guys? Today we're taking a look at my completed build of the Master Grade Gundam 05. So this is actually my second time painting this kit. Way back in the day, well, it's really only been just a few years ago. When I first started getting into painting, I actually painted up the Master Grade Gundam 04 and 05 together and had some fun with that. But this time, this is for a commission, so I had a kind of set goal for this based on what the client wanted for the commission, and this is my finished product of how it turned out. And so for this build, basically what the client wanted was to take the Master Grade Gundam 05 here and make it look more like a modern Master Grade, just because, well, I think the original Master Grade for this kit does still stand up pretty well. It's still a really nice Master Grade. He wanted to look a little bit more modern, just with a little bit more detailing and a little bit more kind of sharpness to the design, I think. So I basically stuck to the original color scheme here. As you can see, it's just tweaked a little bit here and there. I'll talk a little bit more about the colors here in a minute, but basically the big thing was just going in and adding a bunch of details. I didn't go crazy about like adding panel lines and all the details all over the place. I didn't want to go too overboard with it, because actually modern Master Grades, there's quite a bit of range and difference between the level of detail in them. For example, the Master Grade Jagan, which we had out recently, not very all that detailed at all, but then other Master Grade gyms that we've had out of as of late have been more detailed, and so there's quite a bit of range. So I felt like I wanted to add bits of detail here and there, but not really go over too crazy. So there's a little bit of like panel line scribing, like around the waist section. I separated out the waist skirt armor so that I could add a little bit of color separation there. So you'll see there's a little bit of color separation, like between the two-tone white. There's like a white and a very light gray color that you'll see like on the sides of the head, on the top of the shoulders, and on like the top half of the skirt armor, like that. So there's just a little bit of that. And then just adding like a lot of basically a lot of little notch details and everything here and there. So adding like the little notches just kind of around everywhere, everywhere where it made sense to me. Also like on the front of the chest, on like the top of the chest, added the little fins on there, kind of similar to like the Master Grade Double Zeta Verka, which came out recently, had a kind of similar detail. And then just like adding some panel lines onto the inside of the forearms, and just details here and there, as you guys will be able to see that. Really the only parts that I didn't really touch at all were like the shield. I didn't add any details to that. The fuel tanks, I didn't really do anything with those. They're detailed enough as is. And the Gatling gun, really didn't do a whole lot to that either. I did add a little bit of details on that, on the red part on the side of that, added a little notch, and then for like the circle part on the front of that, I changed that part a little bit, changed the details on that. But and also the just the beam rifle, I didn't really do anything to that except for just removing the seam line. That was another thing that was a challenge with this kit, was a lot of seam line removal, because it's an older Master Grade. So there was a fair amount of seam line removal required for this kit. And also, one thing that I never really liked much about this design is the design of the elbows. They're meant to rotate at the elbows as well as bend, and so they just kind of look very weak, and they're kind of rounded, and they just don't really fit the design, in my opinion. So I scratch built some new elbow joints for this, and it was relatively simple. I didn't have to actually make any moving parts. I just had to make the one single part for the middle of the elbow to fit into there. And so I just made new ones for the elbows and made them more blocky, more angular, that fit the design more, I think. So it's not really going to be something that's really going to stick out as something you're really going to notice unless I tell you. So I'm telling you guys so that you will notice that the elbows are not stock. Obviously, of course, the hands are not stock either. I changed those out for Bandai's HD Builders parts, 1/100 scale EFSF style hands. The unfortunate thing about that handset is that it doesn't come with just a regular holding hand, it only has trigger finger hands, so the hand holding the shield has a trigger finger extended, which I agree, it does look a bit odd. But there just really wasn't any choice about that other than like modifying the finger to have it more angled in. Could have maybe done that. Honestly, with so much else to look at, I don't think it's something that you're really going to focus on too much, so it ends up being pretty alright. And yeah, so went through the painting process. As for the colors that I used, like I said, I stuck pretty close to the original color scheme with just a few changes here and there. I got rid of pretty much all of the white on the Gatling gun. Originally that had a lot more white to it, so I changed it mostly to gray, with leaving basically just one part in white. And then adjusted the colors a little bit for the torso. It was supposed to be kind of lighter gray. I changed that to a dark color, like almost black. And then the feet as well, I believe, are also originally red, and I changed those to just a kind of dark gray for those as well. The orangish yellow parts are very close to the original color. Those are just like a mix of character yellow and a little drop of fluorescent orange in there as well. And then as for the red, that was a mix of a couple different colors. I don't remember actually offhand. That was a mix of a couple different colors of red and fluorescent red in there to get a really nice, bright, like vivid red color for that. And then the white I think is the most interesting part of this, just because of the way that I did that. I primed all the white parts in lavender, essentially. I took white primer and added a little bit of lavender purple into, actually I just added a little bit of purple into it, and it made it just a really light lavender color because I wanted the white to have a little bit of a tint of purple to it. Kind of seemed like Katoki box art style, considering this is based off of the Master Grade RX-78-5 Verka. The Katoki design, I wanted to keep this looking, and this is a Katoki design as well, but I wanted to keep it very Katoki style and give it a little bit of that tint of purple to the white. So yeah, it was primed all in lavender, and despite it being a really light lavender color, I was surprised at how many coats of white it took to really scale back the lavender on it, and it still ends up looking, I mean, there's still an obvious tint of purple to it, so it's even still like very apparent, but it took 3 or 4 coats of white over those parts to get it to the point of how you're seeing it now. So that was an interesting task. I don't want to say it was like a chore or anything too hard, but that was a good learning experience because I hadn't ever used that color like for the primer before, and like going off that. I've painted white before. I know how tricky white can be, how many coats white can sometimes be to get a good coverage, but that was an interesting experience. So yeah, and then for like the grays, everything, especially on the different gray parts everywhere for the Gatling gun, and just like some of the details for the different frame parts and things like that. There's a bunch of different grays in there. I think there's like 4 or 5 different shades of gray actually on the Gatling gun, but it's really subtle, so I think you're really not going to notice unless you look like really up close. The other challenge that I ran into is that the handle for the shield didn't fit with the new hands. So the new hands that I gave this kit from the HD Builders parts were wider than the original hands, so those that didn't fit into that shield connector part. So basically what I had to do was cut off the back half of the handle arm for the shield, the handle for the shield, and it's on the back of the arm, so you're never really going to notice either way. I think it's totally hidden, and it's one of those things no one would have ever noticed if I hadn't mentioned it, but it's just one of those things that I actually didn't even like try out until I was on like final assembly, and I was putting it together and then realizing the hand doesn't fit into there. So I'm like trying to figure out what's the best way to fix this solution without having to go back and just like completely scrap parts or having to completely repaint parts or something like that, by having to do some more modification to it. So basically it was a pretty simple, quick fix to that little problem. And otherwise, it's just a bunch of decal work, detail painting. All of the panel lining was done on the white parts. All the panel lining is done in just a light gray. And on all the red parts, the panel lining was done just in black. And a lot of times people will use brown for panel lining on red parts, but just because of the color scheme for this one, I didn't want to add any brown into the mix at all, so I just wanted to keep it with black for that. And then just a bunch of detail painting on like adding the new details that I'd added, like the little notches and stuff, just having to go in and just detail those up just with hand, just with a brush. Also the inside of the shield, all the gray bits that you see on the inside of the shield, just hand painted all of that. I really can't be bothered with masking. I really hate masking. I did a little bit of masking for this, for making like the two-tone white parts, but especially on the back of the shield, that just really intricate design, it would have taken hours of masking, where hand painting that was a little bit of a chore, but it really wasn't that bad. So there you go, that is my finished build. I really love this kit, so I definitely did not mind at all painting a second one, and it's been a few years, so it's not like I just built like 2 of the same back to back. But despite it being an older kit, I would definitely still highly recommend the Master Grade Gundam 04 or 05, or both. They're both really cool kits. I did an out-of-box review for this kit, so if you haven't seen that, if you want to see like my just review of just the straight-up out-of-box kit, you can check out that review. But that's pretty much it for this. There wasn't really anything too much else to it. It was just kind of detailing it up and giving it a nice paint job. Oh my god, I almost completely forgot that I made this custom base for it as well. So this is, again, just like this little wood tray from Daiso, which is like a dollar store, and I think it costs like maybe $2 or something basically. And then just took this piece of plot plate, added some risers to that so that it would fit up to the level here like that, and just did a little bit of painting on that, added the decals there. Just the number is just random, doesn't mean anything. 235 is just a big number decal that I had, which I thought just kind of fit for the base. So yeah, I made this nice simple base for this, and it can stand up on top of it here. So it's nothing too crazy, but I think it just makes for a nice, simple, elegant stand. It looks nice on it, but it doesn't draw attention away from the kit. I think it just kind of helps to elevate the kind of nice display quality of the kit in general, and just gives it just something nice to stand on there. So yeah, it's simple. It doesn't really have to be anything too crazy, just to give it a nice little something to stand on. So just real quick concerning the pose too, there was actually a little bit of a deliberation between the client and I about how we wanted to have the kit pose, whether we wanted to have the rifle in hand or having like some sort of weapon rack along with it, and like having the shield and the beam rifle on a weapons rack or something alongside the kit. Just because we both agree that we didn't really like the way the shield attaches onto the arm. I hate how like far away from the arm the shield is, like way out there on the side of the arm. So contemplated modifying that to make it stick onto the side of the arm rather than the back of the arm, or having that just like I said on like a separate weapons rack or something. And ultimately in the end we decided just kind of keep it like this, keep it simple with the pose, you know, just standing, holding his stuff, you know. The shield is a little bit odd how it's so far away from the kit, but that's just how the design is, so I figure just stick with that and just live with it. And I think it looks fine. I'm totally cool with it now. I don't think it's like distracting or anything. It does look a little bit weird if you're looking at it intentionally, but ultimately I think it ended up looking like a pretty nice kit here, so I'm quite happy with this, and hopefully the client will be as well. Let me know what you guys think of the kit down in the comment section down there below. What do you think was good, bad, what could have been better? What would you like to maybe try out of what you've heard me discuss about what I did with this? Anything that you thought sounded interesting that you might like to try on a future kit of your own? Just let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out and listening to me talk about this kit, and plenty more stuff on the way, guys, so stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.